honored to be here yet another year, and congratulations to the community and amount of managing this year as well. I am based in Baltimore, Maryland, in the US, but originally from Uganda. I'm transgender, 25 and 15, very proud transgender, and a human rights defender, continuously to get back the space that has been taken away from people like me. I am a leader on both the continent and also here in the diaspora, using the platform, the Victim Mukasa Foundation, a legacy foundation, that I am dedicated to amplifying the voices of trans Africans and queer refugees in Africa and in the diaspora. So this forum, is the right place for me to be, given the kind of work that I do, connecting with activists and human rights defenders in Canada. I'm very happy to be, in touch with RARICAnow, and very grateful for the support that you have given our siblings in various ways over the years. I'll stop there for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor. Mama Snow.
Hi everyone, my name is Anita Namasole, or Seguma Stephen Anita on my social media. I'm trans woman from Uganda. Now I'm here in Canada, Toronto, Carrier Street, but I was on to, my English is not perfect, well, I was on to request sometimes to translate my principle at the time of giving me to raise my issues. I was to justify that to complete for you guys. I'm here in Toronto. I was from Uganda, I'm trans woman, and trans woman activist for trans person here in Canada and Africa at large. Thank you.
You are most welcome, Mama Snow. Reverend, we already had your intro. So we're going to go straight to the first question, It's more of what experiences have you, what are some of the experiences you have experienced as activists, as human rights defenders, but above all as trans individuals. I think often the time we forget that we are part of the community that we are supporting. So I'm curious to hear from you about that. Maybe we'll take 2 minutes for this, and I'm gonna start with you, Reverend.
Alright, hello everyone. I'm in conversation with you, Victor, Anita, and Adebayo. What are some of my experiences as an activist here in Toronto? So I'm a professor of Black Lives Matter in Canada, and so a lot of my work has been around Black justice movements and solidarity movements within Indigenous communities here as well. Some of the experiences that I've had, particularly organizing for Black Lives Matter, is a lot of folks don't assume or think that a person with my experience is a leader in the movement. And so I often come up against the assumptions that people have around what is possible for trans people to be able to do in terms of leadership. A lot of what I used to focus on at the beginning of my time at BLM was sitting with families. I do harm reduction, and so a lot of what I was doing was the conversations with families after extremely horrifying experiences that they've had with the police mostly. And I would let them know what BLM can offer to them, both from a media platform perspective and also support sort of behind the scenes. And what would often happen is I would sort of walk into someone's home or wherever we were meeting, and there would be this immediate shock of like, didn't expect to see you. But because they knew that I was with BLM, just a certain amount of respect that they had to have because I was there to help. And eventually, once they got to know me and once they got more comfortable, it was sort of easy to flow. But that initial moment was always quite scary. Not because people are inherently scary, but you never know how people are going to react to you. And these are both very vulnerable people with very vulnerable states. And so, yeah, the skills that we've had to develop on our team to go out into certain spaces, to have these conversations, has been really important. Making sure that we have exit strategies, making sure that we have people on the team who are not trans, who can buffer from time to time. Yeah, these things are some of the things that are really helpful. But I do think that trans people being in the center of what we need is important. And a major shift. Like 10 years ago, there were lots of conversations about trans people never actually being in the room, never being consulted on what our needs actually were. And a lot of people trying to diagnose us and our issues without really consulting us at all. There has been a major shift in that, but we still have a long way to go in legislature as we see in policies that are happening across the world now.
Yes, I really agree with you. We do still have a long way to go. I'm gonna go to you, Anita. What does trans inclusion look like? You can actually osobola okuddamu ekibuzo kyoyagala okuddamu. So osobola okusharing ensonga zo, ensonga gyoyagala okwanja. Weba eri related to gwe nga gwe ng'omuntu okuincluding aba trans people wekirabika kitya gy'oli owulira otya nga abantu bakuincluding ekibuzo ndozana kigezezaako wekikuddiramu obulungi okitegedde
okuludinga
I'll help with that.
nyambaako
Yeah, Anita, lwabuuza era emboozi eri wano ekwatagana n'embeera ey'okulaba nti buli kye tukola nga community ey'abaqueers nti ddala okulaba nti trans tuliyo erya ddala oba tetuliyo erya ddala. Era ebigambo ebyo erimu ebirowoozo birowoozaako kigezo okusharinga n'abantu bano. Abantu bagamba okukola mu bwa trans ekibiina ky'abasiyazi bonna olaba nga trans nebayita ddala oba yaswakama. Kati ayagala oyogere ku ekyo bw'oba osobola okukozesa n'ebiva mu experience yo nga trans woman, nga trans activist, nga trans person mu community zaffe.
ngenda kutandikira wano mumwezi ekyendaba
what I see.
ku ssaawa zengenda mu maaso as trans person, trans community ekyemiriddemu tetulinawo trans community oba betongole beetaba trans woman oba beetaba siyasa abaddala nti batuufu.
So yes, so I want you to give me a chance to interpret, right? So Anita is saying one of the most issues that is faced by the trans community, trans refugees, is we don't have organizations that bring trans people who identify as trans people in Canada, yet they are still in refugee camps made in safety.
Kubanga nze ndabye abantu abeeyita
Yes, right there. Wait, Anita.
I think
Anita, Nidako. And it is, yeah, so she said that she has seen people who say they identify as trans, but when they are exploiting trans people.
ndabira abantu abajja wano mu Canada nga bayitira ebitongole ebireeta abantu nti either abasigazi abatranswoman batransman naye nga baleeta abantu abali batuufu ate bajja wano mu Canada ate tukolako homophobia transphobia kugamba
Anita,
kutiramu ensi.
Anita, I want you, njagala opaakadde nvunule byoyogera, right? So, she's saying she has seen people who have come here, organizations of all people here as 2S LGBTQ, as trans people specifically, right, in Canada, but they are not trans, and also they portray, they become transphobic and homophobic to the trans people. So that's the message. You get it? Yeah, it's deep. Go ahead, Anita. Finish up.
It's kyali badde awo nti nno obakala bakolese naye ng'olimusiyasi naye nga tebakigwamu kati netwebuuza yo nga Canada erimu okuyingiza abantu gye tuddukidde ate leta abantu abagendera okutukalako obuzibu ekitegeera otugenda okufa tutasooka mu nnyumba musula ajja kusoolamu omune ajja kukolera amalusu ajja kukola kino ekitegeera n'otukalaba okwetera mu nnyumba mwoli okuba nti no tokyali safe mu nsi yolirowoozaako yobeera mu safe.
Yes. So Anita is saying why Canada is bringing people who are not LGBTQ that are making them feel so unsafe. They spit on her, they humiliate trans people, and yet they came in the name of being trans, being LGBTQ. Why is Canada bringing people like that to Canada? Yes. Government. Yes. Yes. Exactly. This is what she's doing. She's bringing awareness to it. Yeah, and I think, I like that, but I think it starts here where there are policymakers in this room, right? There are organization leaders in this room, right? There are people who have connection to people in power in this room, right? So I think it's such a beautiful space for us to know. Yeah. Anita. It's okay. What deals left Victor? You reach a time when you can't even leave your home, your house. And you want to unlive yourself.
Yes. And Katimada is a trans woman in the freedom Uganda,
Yes, me as a trans woman in Uganda, I have been jailed in more than 14 prisons. Even in Nairobi, Kenya, in the refugee camps, I was in prison 2 times. You know what? These are experiences of trans people. So Anita says that she has experienced very dehumanizing experience of getting a stick, putting it in there behind, and and they're wondering, they really came for safety in Canada, but still they're facing transphobia. Yes. Yes, so Anita is really begging, is asking if there is any organization or anyone in here to really fight that fraud of people who come here, who they bring here, organizations that bring here towards LGBTQ refugees, bring in people who are non-trans. When they come here, they start attacking trans people, they start being transphobic, homophobic to trans people. To add on what Anita is saying, I have experienced it too. I have worked in a decade, 10 years, in towards LGBTQ refugees and newcomers. But the truth is, there are some who come getting status as towards LGBTQ, but then be homophobic and transphobic. Let me be clear about my stance. We can't leave our homeland if they're safe. And neither, even if someone is LGBTQ or not, anyone who leaves their home to come here, it's because home is not safe, right? So people claim refuge using LGBTQ. Me, no, this is a bit personal because Anita, you've just shared that and it's a hot piece and I've been whispering, I continue to whisper in stuff, John Humphrey stuff so much, I'm telling you, whenever I get one, right? That we have people who have get status as LGBTQ and then they be transphobic on us, they be homophobic on us right here. They use social media, they use different communities to isolate us. We would not have an issue if they were not homophobic, if we were not transphobic. And this is the point Anita is bringing home, right? It's similar point. So and that brings me to vetting. There's organizations who work with LGBTQ communities vet these individuals. Just a question for you to chew on. Victor, to you.
Yes, thank you very much. That's all deep stuff we just heard from both Reverend and Anita, and it's very representative of some of the feelings that I have. And for me, of course, my activism has been shaped by initial exclusion. Exclusion is what led me to resist, led me to stand up, wait to close to 3 decades ago in Uganda. And it continues to be the fact that I wake up to every morning as, as an individual and also for my communities, wherever I am. Now, exclusion, the fact that we sit, because this is not a meeting of farmers talking about how to develop, better crops in the future or stuff like that. I believe this is a human rights space, and it is very disheartening for me that we still talk about inclusion in human rights spaces. That it is a topic for us to unpack. I find it weird, and it makes me question whether we are performing in our work, just performing, doing some kind of performance or not. Should exclusion be even an issue to debate when it comes to human rights spaces? Now, as trans man, trans dad, trans activists who bled everything for the movement in Uganda, for example, with the family of the first organizations and leading that movement for years before I fled. I am representative for so many movement pieces in Africa, for example, that were started by trans people. And yet, trans people today are erased out of the history of this movement, not only in Africa, elsewhere. Trans people today, we are in the Pride period, Pride month of June, July. You see that their Pride parades were trans, the mothers, our sisters, our mothers, those who are the beginning of Pride. I don't even acknowledge, how will the current ones be acknowledged? How can they be trans Pride marches across the world without the presence and inclusion, and the active inclusion, not for optics, not for performance, but active inclusion of transgender people in those prides, in those speeches, in those human rights events that happen prior to Pride Parade. There's so many places. I was International Grand Marshal of Pride Toronto 16 years ago. And it is the first year that Pride Toronto had a trans march. And that was a shock for me. That for the first time, and all trans people were celebrating. We have an International Grand Marshal who is a trans finally, and we are going to have our first trans march. I was so shocked that was even a huge celebration. That how can Pride be celebrated for all those years of Pride Toronto without a trans march? Where you have a dive match, you have any kind of match you want to bring up will happen. So I feel that exclusion is our fight. And exclusion, when it comes to, when it comes to the LGBTIQ and true spirit, respecting the terminology in Canada, it's a big fight for all of us. And yet, trans people are at the margins of that fight. We claim as LGBTIQ people plus are menus on the table, but indeed we are even on the menu of queer tables, queer dining tables. We end up being on that menu.
And yet, organizations receive funding because of trans people.
Yes, and that is from history. That the team was a decoration and to bring about acceptance of a proposal from an organization that reported team. And it was only a team. But even to date, that is the story. When you look at housing in New York, I was talking to somebody, there's not enough, or just even slightly enough housing for young trans people. It's safe housing. Just targeting that community. It's just like a Bible that we have a small house here, a small house there, when these people are actually the face of what homophones and trans folks are attacking. And I think it is time for organizations, for private event organizers, for community leaders, looks different from what it is today. That inclusion involves having trans people speak for themselves. That inclusion involves having trans people visible and supported as trans pride, and not just, hey, you can be there, nobody saying you cannot be there. No, because we are having trans pride, because we are having gay pride, whatever it is called, because some black trans women or women of color stood up at some point and stood for all of us. So we cannot kill that. That is why the trans people are resisting. We are rising. We are saying no more backing for nothing. We are saying no more backing and giving our stories to be added in popular books for nothing.
transgender people.
Even here.
They don't have the terminology.
Yes. You have a question?
When they don't have that into action, it is transgender people who are seen from a distance that are arrested. And I think that we need to rethink what inclusion looks like in the queer community across the world. And I thank you so much, RARICAnow, for making this a topic for us to unpack here. I will stop here for now and then can say more with some kind of directed questions because I might get to where I'm not supposed to be getting.
I like you to get where you are, wherever you go. Yeah. You have a question? Yes, because actually they are interconnected, right? Everything is connected. So what is happening in America, what is happening in Uganda is happening here. Just what Victor mentioned, here we all know the anti-trans legislation, right? It is also happening in the US, similar laws are happening in because we are human beings, that's why we care. Yeah, we are. Okay, so we are going to the next question. Thank you for that. So, what would be a call to action for non-for-profit? Reverend, I'm going to start with you. And I think on this part, feel free to really share some issues, because this is the final question. Some issues you have experienced, some issues you have seen in non-for-profit sectors, especially non-for-profit that supports, that our communities are. It's called the illusion of inclusion. Yes. That.
Sorry, before you continue, Reverend, Chris, do you mind interpreting that for Anita so she can also organize her, thoughts before she speaks as Reverend speaks?
Yes, Anita, ekibuzo kyembuuzizza kigamba nti biki bye wandiyagadde okulaba nga bibaawo mu bitongole byaffe bye tukoleramu. So, Reverend, to you.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so non-profit business I find are having sites of some of the most extreme transphobia I found. They're the ones that have the policies, that have the conversations and the meetings and the inclusion seminars, but we find that in my experience and experience of some of my other friends, that they are constantly dehumanized in trying to access support, i.e. like human resources, for example, and how some of those policies are supposed to perform for people who are experiencing that discrimination. A lot of people don't recognize how much we go through as trans people. And it's not particularly, and how is this? For myself, for example, I'll give an example. I'm invited into a lot of spaces, a lot of not-for-profit spaces, a lot of universities, a lot of spaces. And often I'm the only trans person in the space. And what I will ask is, as soon as I arrive, hello everyone, my name is Gary Ladies. Can I ask you a question? Which bathroom can I use?
Yeah.
And often no one knows what to say.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next thing I say is, so then how can I be in public space if I can't be use a public washroom.
Mm-hmm.
None of you can tell me which one I should use,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm invited in this space to talk to you about inclusion. And I haven't even thought about and how I am in this space today. And so then I can say, I understand that these are things that you don't know. That these are things that you are learning and that you are growing into. And I'm making myself available for that learning. But that means that the next time I come, you must have a washroom for me and other trans people to use. Because I cannot be the only trans person in this space. I'm just the only one who is identified in front of you. Lots of trans people, non-binary people, and queer people, for that matter, know it's unsafe to come out. There aren't actual, there are a lot of people who don't feel like work is a place where they can be completely themselves. And I think that when people consider trans people saying, oh, we want to be ourselves, they immediately go to sex and deviance. Right, unfortunately, because of the larger stereotypes that are connected to us as a community. When in fact, we are often the victims of sexual hate crimes, right? And those are perpetrated by people who are never asked to show up a particular way, who are never asked to tone it down. There are all these particular ways in which we come into a space and we're already armed. We're already having to shelter ourselves away from the potential harm, right? And so this is my call to action is for every single person in this room to consider the spaces that you are in, all the spaces that you are in, publicly, and ask yourself, is this a space that a disabled person with a wheelchair can come into? Is this a space that a trans woman, a trans man who is and or isn't visibly trans, and will they be comfortable when they're here? It's not enough to say it's a safe space. That's not real. A safe space is practice community agreements, right? And so if there isn't a community agreement around how safety needs to come up, it's her job when something comes up to say, hey, this is this person's pronouns, these are mine. Can we go around and actually have everyone share their pronouns?
Just like we did here.
Yeah, it takes off the trans person to have to do all of that work and pull up and do their job. Right? This is similar to how black people do in spaces. So when you're black and trans specifically, there are high levels of anxiety, high levels of stress, and it becomes debilitating in a really specific way. And other trans people face this too, but specifically black folks, specifically refugees, have a hard experience, a much harder experience in accessing healthcare and accessing any and everything that we should be able to access for our dignity.
Thank you, Reverend, because now that really reminds me of, we do really need trans tables in your non-for-profits. We need dedicated trans tables, trans programming in all non-for-profits, especially non-for-profits that receive twice LGBTQ funding. Yes, to you, Anita, Odina dakika mbili, teka wawa katikitiki. Dakika mbili, Anita. Anita, chichiche wandiyagadde okulaba mu bitongole ebikulembera ebitongole ebituwa services, ebitongole ebikulembera abantu, ebikulembera ebibiina by'abasiyazi, kiki kye wandiyagadde okulaba? Kiki kye wandiyagadde okulaba kibeewo? What I would like to see? To bring people who are real. So that trans women can be hired as well and can work. To have access to housing as well. if you are a trans woman or a trans person, to go in a bathroom that you like without facing discrimination. Doctors, healthcare providers, to be okay with us, to be okay with who we are. Okay, now you know English doesn't have so many words, right? It's such a plain language. But Anita says to be, treated as a woman, she is. Meanwhile, trans women are women. So she doesn't want to be treated based on her body parts because she's not biologically female. She wants to be treated as a woman that she is. Yes. Okay, thank you, Anita. Victor, I'm coming to you right after I interpret. Anita says that organizations that are being funded by the government to bring towards LGBTQ refugees in Canada, they need to do research on individuals that they're bringing in the country. Also, she mentioned that here in Canada, trans people need to be empowered in all aspects, in all sectors, in all ways of their being. There is so much that has been taken away from us just by being who we are. So empowering us, you're not doing so much. You are literally doing what you're supposed to do. To you, Victor. Okay. One last thing. Yes. Yes. Okay. So Anita is saying the final thought, and Anita, I'm glad you brought that up because this is why we started the Ewaka housing. Anita is saying, trans people are on streets, trans people are homeless, they are in shelters, and these shelters are not built. They're not built, created with them in mind, right? Within shelter systems, most of them get out of shelter and they're on streets. They get going to using drugs that are very unhealthy for their bodies. But because that is what is there, because that is very accessible. By the way, drugs are very accessible on our streets, and I don't know who brings them on our streets, but they're very accessible. So Anita, thank you for that, and this is why we started a Waka Housing Initiative, to provide housing for trans and Kuribai Park folks Victor, to where can give us the last bit, the last one.
And revenue resolutions in terms of calls to action. I believe that the space that we are in today is a space of people who are working with trans people, or mostly the people here work with trans people, and in good faith, we want to be supportive of our trans communities. Well, for me, my cause I tried to put it down in a very brief way because I might get busy, eat it up, and not stop. I just want to say that if you say you stand with trans people, and this is to NGOs and other organizers, including private event organizers and others, if you say you stand with trans people, this is the time to show it. And don't just include us. Showing it has a lot to do with
Rainbow flags on the door.
funding our work, funding our small initiatives, even big initiatives, and giving us a space at the table when you are called to advocate for resources for the communities. That is how you actually include trans people. Don't just celebrate us, center us, don't just quote us. It is time for you to listen to us and follow our lead when it comes to trans issues. Hire trans people in NGOs, hire trans people, pay trans people, put trans people in positions of power, not for optics that they'll come and count and see how inclusive we are, but because we carry knowledge forged in fire. It has been created in us from our experiences that are actually experiences of fire. Invest in translate projects, make space for us, not only at Pride Parades in June, but in policies, in your budgets. Create that space in your decision-making room. Create space for trans people if you are being trans inclusive. And here, these are some of the questions that as I started off, if your pride has no trans presence, and by now we know what I mean by trans presence. If your pride has no trans presence, ask yourself why. If trans people are working for free in your organization or at small events that you make in your organization, ask yourself who that is benefiting. The answer is right there. We are not asking to be included in a system that exploits us. We are asking to be included in a system that is exactly the opposite of that. That is what inclusion means, that is what empowerment means, that is what working for dignity of everybody looks like. So if you truly want to honor pride, if you truly believe in trans inclusion, build with us. Work with us, walk with us, stand with us, and don't come empty-handed. Pay us.
Say it louder, I didn't hear the last one. Can you say it a bit louder?
The last piece?
Yes.
Because we've already paid with our lives.
They pay us, come on.
Now we
Yeah.
attention and pay your dues. We have already paid.
Thank you, Victor.
And that is a call to action. It's with grace. And I'm saying there's so many good intentions with the movement, human rights movement, but in case, the things are missing and your definition of inclusion doesn't sound like what we have just unpacked today, I guess it is time for you to ask yourselves some of those questions. Who does it benefit? Is it benefiting my organization to be seen as an organization that is inclusive and taking care of everybody? Or is it actually benefiting trans people in my constituency?
Thank you so much, Victor.